Alright my friends, we're back. Now this sign here not only shows the James Dean's from here, but it also shows they have a James Dean exhibit at the Fairmount Historical Museum. Well, here we are my friends. We've made it to the museum, and inside here is where Marcus has donated many of James Dean's artifacts and personal belongings, including, I believe, 2 of his motorcycles, many of the things from the farm, many of the things from his New York apartment. I can't wait to see this. And I'm sure we'll be back here to vlog some Garfield in the future, but today, it's all about this man. Wow, take a look at this place. There's the check. And here's from one of Jimmy's visits here to town. Well, right here in this first case, we have James Dean's check motorcycle. That's the one that Marcus told us about yesterday, that the family bought Jimmy. He used to go riding up and down the street, laying lengthwise across this. That's so cool, and that's the same one that they took the wheels off of to put in the car to bring back here from California. Now that's Jimmy's basketball sweater with the letter on there for when he graduated in 1949 from Fairmount. Now check this out, and that motorcycle, believe it or not, that was built in 1918. Wow. And it's even pretty cool. I mean, you can see that the seat's kind of worn out, but then it has tassels at the back, like kind of like his jacket from Giant, which is also here. Then here we have his baseball Letterman sweater. Now this is cool. This is one of the gables from the house that Jimmy was born in, the House of 7 Gables that we visited the other day. That's actually from the house. Now I really love this case because check this out. Here's Jimmy's birth announcement. And then his baby clothes are right inside there. His shoes, look at that. And then down here you have a bunch of his awards from school. Most of them are all track and field, if you notice. As well as his childhood train set, and a lot of pictures behind there of him doing different activities in town. There's his baseball team, him by that tractor, and then a little card that he signed. Now this case is pretty fascinating. Check this out. Here we've got all kinds of letters, and you can see signed programs from different things that Jimmy was a part of. Some of his basketball schedule right there. His little miniature Derringer pistol. Look at all that. And then there's his Santa Monica City College Letterman sweater, as well as his Congo drum. And then this is a clay model that he made. How about that? And these are all of his phone numbers. He hand wrote the phone numbers, and if you notice, the very top one says Liz Taylor. It's pretty interesting. I see Jane Withers on there. Pretty interesting. And then there's, as you move down a little bit, some of his school books. And he did all the lettering and everything on there. So that he made this at the age of 12 years old. Now that shirt down there in the bottom is his shirt from East of Eden. It says it was donated by the Fairmount Historical Museum by Martin Sheen. Sheen wore this shirt in one scene of a TV miniseries, Blind Ambition, but it says the shirt was issued to James Dean May 5th of 1954. Now this case is actually one of my favorites because I love the movie Giant, and these are his clothes from Giant. his chaps and that fringed jacket. Look at the belt buckle. And then all the way, those are the jeans, down to the boots. And there's a picture of him wearing it. And there's a picture of him wearing the whole thing, all the way down to the belt buckle. Now that says that's a drawing that Jimmy did when he moved to New York City. Now in this case, this is really cool. This is his racing gear. That's his racing uniform, along with a ton of pictures of him wearing it. So check that out. Let me get me out of there. Sorry, you're getting a little bit of a glare, but wow. It's basically like a one-piece suit, and you can see in all these photos he's wearing it. Now this case is most of his stuff from New York, his apartment in New York. And if you've ever seen that famous photo of him depicting the bullfighter, that's the cape, those are the horns. And it even says bull horns and matador cape that hung in James Dean's apartment in New York City. And here's a picture that you can see of inside his apartment. You can see his boots kicked up, and right behind him on the wall is the horns and everything. And then here's a picture from that photo shoot that I was telling you about. Now this is really cool too, because these Congo drums, it says he brought these with him to Fairmount when he came for that visit in February of '55. Then he took them on to New York, and they were in his apartment until he died. But check out the picture back there on the farm. He's like sitting out there with the cows with that drum playing it. And then here is a picture of Jimmy playing his bongos, and the bongos are right there. Now if you move over to here, you can see a lot of his stage play photos from New York, as well as one of the scripts, and then some of his books and the musical recorder from his apartment. Here's his the credit to his bank account, Chase Bank. Now if you take a look at those two little like stuffed animal looking things, it says the bull, the toy bull and tiger can be seen in front of the round window in Jimmy's New York apartment. And then if you look right up above, look right up there, there they are. Now here is one of his combs, and then his Bloomingdale's card with his address on it, and then a picture of him with that recorder that we just saw. How about that? And then pretty amazing painting of him with a playbill from the Immoralist. They said he was in the Immoralist and then had to give notice that he was resigning to play Cal in East of Eden. Now here's some of the mementos, and I actually mentioned this one a few days ago when I mentioned his favorite teacher here, Adeline Knoll. That's the orchid that he borrowed that a student gave her, and he took it to art class, painted it for her, and said, you know, now you'll have it forever. Back there's a little trophy that he won. It says Grant County Voice of Youth winner, Fairmount High. And then there's a picture of him over here when he played basketball. And here's a photo signed to Adeline Knoll from James. It says, "Play your part well, for there all the honor lies, Jim." And then here's a letter to a fan from Grandmother Dean. And then there's the announcement of James Dean's mother passing right here. It says former resident, Marion resident dies. And then these are pictures of Jimmy when he was a baby with his mother and father. His mother's Mildred, and that's who passed away. There's Mildred and Jimmy. And then here's Jimmy's lease. It says it's the original lease from his last place on Sutton That's the one that that burned after he passed away. Then there's his coffee pot and everything that it says he bought shortly before he died, as well as an unfinished sculpture that he was doing. And those are his sculpting tools. You can see right there. There's a picture of him working on it. Now that's his Bible from the church that we saw the other day, the Back Creek Friends Church, where he first performed. And here's his diploma and some of the Letterman stuff from when he was in high school, as well as a picture of him. And then behind there you can see a very young Jimmy at the farm that we were just at yesterday with Marcus. And Marcus is here, but he's been moving stuff around. He brought some stuff in here to donate, and he got a little winded, and I said, you know what, that's okay. I said, I can walk around and do this myself. So there's Jimmy on his bicycle, and a very young Jimmy right there with one of his sketchbooks. And then right below, all of this is art that he created. Watercolors. He was really talented, even as a young kid. You can see right here in the corner, it's signed Jimmy Dean.
Yeah, Eric.
Early inventions of flight. Very cool. And then there's more of his artwork, more of his watercolors. And then right there is more of the artwork of his original artwork that he created when he lived here.
In that swamp area, and then they had to bring a third tractor.
And then that's a replica of the hand and footprint that we ended the vlog with over there yesterday. That's now cracked. This they got it before it was cracked. They made a casting of it. Now that is an original theater pop-up or prop-up from when Giant came out that would have been an advertisement right there when you went in to see the movie. Now let's go into this room. Now there's James Dean's class picture from 1949. Let's see if we can see young James Dean. I see him right here. Now it looks like that is a painting by Kenneth Kendall, the same man who did the bust that we all know at Griffith Park and here in town. And here's a Rebel Without a Cause poster. Now check out this section. You guys are gonna love this. This is all stuff that was actually used, purchased, or owned by James Dean. The sink right there says this wash basin was in the apartment at 19th West 68th Street, New York City that James resided in. So he would have brushed his teeth, shaved, washed his face, you name it in there. And then this chair says this rocking chair has been in the Winslow family since at least the 1880s, and James Dean could be sitting in this chair while using the phone in the Winslow dining room. And that photo is right here. There's Jimmy sitting there using the phone in the rocking chair. Now this gate right here, this black gate, that's actually a section of the wrought iron section that's in the Riata home featured in Giant. The house was actually a two-sided facade built by Warner Brothers, and they shipped it out there. And it says that this piece was salvaged from the set after it was raised in 1957. Now this little stand here, it says James bought and gave to the telephone stand to his aunt and uncle Marcus and Ortines Winslow during his last visit to Fairmount. And if you want to see exactly where this wrought iron was at on the house, it's right here. Look where the green arrow is. It's right up there in the movie. Now here on this wall are just many, many photos from throughout James's life. Let's go take a look. We have some from movie sets. There's he and Marlon Brando. And then you have Jimmy on a horse. And you have Jimmy on set. And those boots right there that he's wearing, Marcus actually brought those here with us. So I'll show you those in the case in just a little bit, those cowboy boots. And then there's Jimmy and his father, Winton, and there's his mother, and there's a young James. And then there he is playing basketball. There's that bullfighter pose I was telling you about. And we've been there many a times. And there as well. Now there's a record recording, a rare broadcast it says, featuring Natalie Wood. And then down here is a life mask, as well as some like copper coins or whatever that have his image on there, medallions. And then here you can actually see him with the masks behind as they were making them. Now in this case you have a casting of, that's the original cast, I believe, of how they made the ones that we've seen at Griffith Park. And then here's a needlepoint picture of James, as well as unbelievable, look at that little uniform. That uniform was his, and it was his basketball uniform when he was a little boy. And here's actually a picture of his team and him wearing it. And I'm sure you can figure out which one he is. A little smirk up there. And it says, James Dean wore this basketball suit, the 6th grade team. Wow. And then there's a picture of him on the high school senior trip. And you can see he's wearing the glasses that Marcus was telling us about yesterday that he always saw Jimmy wear. And there's a picture of him inside the newspaper. How about that? Now that big stick looking thing right there, you know what that is? I told you that Jimmy was quite a track star. That's his pole vaulting pole vault, or whatever you would call that, the pole for pole vaulting. And I'll show you, they have a little, that's relatively new, so they haven't even put an official sign on it, but now we're going into probably what's my favorite room. There's the Triumph that he bought before he passed away, and they have a ton of pictures of him on it. Look at that. That is his motorcycle. I mean, there he is sitting on it. And that motorcycle and that jacket and those boots are all here. You see there, he's laying upon the Triumph. And then here it is. Wow. His Triumph, the one that he rode. I mean, and it looks brand new because it, you know, it pretty much was. He didn't get to ride it very long. Now in this case are various things that he had in his apartment. Says that the statue of Napoleon he always had because he loved it. He said that his nickname for the Napoleon statue was Nappy. And then there's a picture, you can kind of faintly see it in the picture in the background, but it's definitely in there. Right off to the side of him. Now those are the boots that we saw him wearing in that picture. He wore them on the set of Giant, but they were never worn in the movie. But like I said, we've already seen a picture, so we know. Now, beneath it is a book of Pancho Villa, owned and signed by James Dean, that he was reading during the filming of Giant. And then next to it, it says, the locket given to Pierre Angeli with JBD on the front cover and Pierre's picture inside. That was because Pierre was, she was pretty much, a lot of people say the love of his life, but her mother didn't like Jimmy, so they couldn't date. And one of the stories that I was told while I was here was that, actually, and check that out, there's the watch right here in the case that he's wearing in that photo, and that shirt is actually in here as well. But one of the stories I was told was that this motorcycle played a pretty important part in Jimmy's life, because when Pierre got married, Jimmy was actually sitting out front the chapel, and when she came out, he waved and like took off, and they say that that was the inspiration for the scene in The Graduate. Go figure. Now that is a pretty famous painting that Jimmy did. It's really great. Look at that. And then there's a letter down here. Wow. Written by Renee Donaldson. Looks like Rena Donaldson. And then down here, this is his wire recorder. Remember when Marcus gave us the interview, he was telling us that Jimmy had like a microphone attached to his sleeve and whatever. That was part of it. And then here's some letters that Pierre sent to him while he was at Warner Brothers. You can see. Now there's a signed photo of his basketball team, and he's in there as well. He's the second from the right on the bottom row. And then here is his shaving kit, inscribed JBD. And then you see in this picture over here that there's Jimmy playing around with like a little recording device, smoking a cigarette. That recording device, that tape player, is right here. And it says that he used to use this to practice his lines for Giant. The photo shows the tape player in James Dean's California home. The tape player hasn't been used since his death. And then here's one of his favorite shirts, right there. And here we have a picture of him wearing it. Now here's a rare script from Rebel Without a Cause, and it says that it was owned by director Nicholas Ray's personal secretary. And it says this rare script is possibly the only Rebel script in existence signed by the Rebel cast. It's signed by everybody from Dennis Hopper to Jim Backus, Sal Mineo. Everybody signed it. Natalie Wood. Pretty cool. And then here's a Warner Brother contract fax or something about his contract. And then right over here is this framed picture has a promissory note from when Jimmy borrowed $100 from Warner Brothers, and it's stamped paid. Now right over here is his script from Giant. Look at that. A few notes written on the cover, some phone numbers, his friend Bob Hinkle. Wow. It says it's full of notations and changes to the script. And then down here is his original Warner Brothers contract. Down here, as well as a signed picture. And then this is a signed picture of Edna Ferber, who wrote Giant, and you can see that she wrote a little note inside that little circle right there to him, and then signed underneath it to Edna Ferber. Now here's Jimmy's personal copy of East of Eden by Steinbeck, which is really cool. And it says he signed the first page. And then there's some of his record collection. You can see Music of India, things like that. And then a bunch of Warner Brothers internal memos about Jimmy. Now this case is all dedicated to his racing. These are all trophies and accommodations for his races that he attended and raced in. How cool is that? his trophies. Look at that. A lot of trophies, man. That is cool. This was, this trophy right here was, that one right there, was presented to him for winning performance in East of Eden. He was voted by the American people as winner of the Audience Award for Best Performance by a Motion Picture Actor. Wow. And then there's a German Oscar to James Dean as the greatest actor of all time. Various other awards you can see here that were given to him after his passing. And a lot of these are from the Academy. You can see nomination for Giant, nomination for East of Eden. Now here's another one of my favorites. This is his shop motorcycle jacket with his Triumph pins on it. You can see right there. Look at that collar. That's pretty bad. And then his boots. And they actually say that he wore these boots everywhere. This was his everyday walking pair, and he even wore them to premieres. When he wore a tuxedo, he would wear these boots. And here's a picture of him, a couple of pictures of him wearing that jacket. Right there, and right there. And then it says he carried his business papers, including the Giant script, in this briefcase. And it has a California Sports Car Club decal on the top of the briefcase, and that's what that is back there. And then there he is carrying the briefcase. And then there he is laying on top of his Triumph that's right behind us, wearing that jacket and those boots. Wow. Now this you're gonna love. These are actual knives used in Rebel Without a Cause, and it says these knives were used during the making of Rebel Without a Cause. After Jimmy's death, Warner Brothers Studios had Rebel Without a Cause in 1955 painted on the knives and gave them to Jimmy's father, Wynton Dean. And then it says that this little monkey says Steffi Sidney was an actress who played one of the gang members in Rebel Without a Cause. Steffi took this monkey from the set, noting that there were several on the set, so nobody can be sure if this is the one seen on camera, but it was indeed on location during the filming. And here's some checks signed by James Dean from Chase National Bank. Now here we have some mementos from Giant, and the windmill that he sits on in the movie, you can actually see there's a model of it right here. When they were done filming, they took the windmill down, and somebody actually used the actual wood from the real windmill and made this small one and donated it. And you can see here in a picture of from Giant of Jimmy sitting on top of that windmill in the movie, and we also have a picture of him climbing it. I'll show you. There he is climbing the windmill. Now if you look in the background behind the windmill, you see that famous picture from Giant with him leaning on the pole and that rock in the bottom. They actually have that post right here. That's laying right here, and the rock is right down at the bottom, right down here. Check that out, and it actually says that. It says 2 actual posts and rock from the ranch at Marfa, Texas, where Giant was filmed. They could be seen in the photo with James Dean. So there's that post. There's the photo. And then that rock that's down here at the base of his foot, that rock is right there. And then there's the shirt that I was telling you and showing you a little bit ago that they had in here, and here's a photo of him wearing it. Now here's some plaster shingles and bolts and stuff from the set, some of the from the set piece right there. They have those right down there. And here's some mementos from Giant. Now here they have some oil derrick style cufflinks that James Dean bought in Texas while he was filming Giant, and then they actually have the lasso that he uses in that picture behind him. It says the actual lasso rope used in Giant. These photos show James Dean with the rock lasso rope in a scene from Giant, and also on the set practicing with the rope. And then this was another rope that was used by Jimmy and the other cast members, as well as the rifle that he used to hunt jackrabbits while filming Giant. And it says the rifle hasn't been used since either. Now right beside here we have an autograph sheet from a fan, and it was all the cast of Giant. And you can see that he signed it right there on the top. And then this right here is a little letter from Edna Ferber, who wrote Giant, and she's discussing the character in Giant to James Dean. And then these porcelain pieces were all hand painted by Ken Kendall, the guy who did the bust. He did a pretty great job of them too. You can tell he was very moved by knowing Jimmy. I just love this case. This is just one of my favorites, and it's kind of funny to see that Jimmy had painted that yellow, because when you see him riding around on here right in this picture of him riding in Fairmount with his glasses on and everything, it wasn't yellow then. Look, you can see how it was dark right there, and he's painted over it. So take a look at that. You can see where he painted it. Well, my friends, we're gonna call it a day here at the museum. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This place is absolutely incredible. Now, it does close down for part of the year, but they do put a phone number on the door, so you can actually call somebody and they'll come open it up and let you see it. Pretty cool. And I was also told that everything that we saw today, from the memorabilia to all the cases, the cases were all purchased by Marcus. And he has donated everything that's in here of Jimmy's, and he constantly puts new things in, takes things out. So think about that, like he's putting his own money into helping this happen. So cool. I honestly can't believe I saw the clothes from Giant here. That is just too cool that he has the entire outfit, head to toe. And here's a signed picture of, well, the pictures of James and Terry Moore, who I have actually met at the Valentino Memorial, but it's signed by Terry Moore, and it says, with my date, James Dean, 1954. You know what? God bless these people. You know, they were just, everybody I met in this town couldn't have been nicer, couldn't have been sweeter. You know, it's just, you kind of understand where James Dean got that from, and they've kept that alive. So we're gonna make one little stop, because I was trying to find something, I couldn't find it, so I asked about it in here, and they told me that it's been torn down, but I'm gonna show you where it was and what was there and why it's important. So they were telling me that right here, just very recently, they tore the building down, so we just missed it, but right here there used to be an old appliance store, and when James Dean came into town for his very last visit with that photographer, he made the photographer go in here with him, and the photographer said we walked into this appliance store, Jimmy walked all the way in and back to the left, and back in the back corner were a bunch of caskets. And that's where those famous photos that you might have seen, where James Dean's laying in a casket making all these different faces and different poses, that was actually right here. And they said that that would become kind of a taboo photo, where the photographer said I didn't even let the photo get out for a very long time, but that would have happened right here. Almost a, you know, a sad foreshadowing. Now, it just wouldn't have felt right if we took off without visiting James's grave one last time before we headed out of here. Well, the friend that accompanied him out here on that last visit actually said that he felt this was James closing a chapter on his childhood, coming out here making amends to it. Basically, he felt that he had become the star that he always wanted to be while he was here. So he was coming back to the town to kind of say goodbye. And so it's pretty sad that just a few months later he would be back here for eternity, and one of the largest funerals anyone's ever seen, with basically this entire area covered in mourners. At the time, East of Eden would be probably the main thing he was known for, because a short a couple of months before is when he would film Rebel, which would come out right before his death, and then Giant, which would come out after. So here he is for all to come visit here in Fairmount where he was raised. And I just love that Naomi's wreath is still out here. If you notice, she always comes out here every year, like I mentioned in the last video. But you can see this is all the origami. She strings it all together, and that's all those cranes all compiled together on a string.